Taken by mistake as a mail-order bride, she changed a lonely cowboy's life forever. Leora sat in her tiny apartment on Earth, staring at a holographic screen flickering with an unusual message. She blinked, rubbed her eyes, and leaned closer. The message was addressed to her, but the words made no sense. Invitation for settlement bride received. Travel to Aurora Prime to meet your designated partner. Leora laughed nervously. Settlement bride, partner. Wait, I didn't send any request like this. She tapped the screen, hoping it was some kind of glitch or a spam message, but the holographic interface showed no errors. There was a date, coordinates for a distant planet, and a holographic projection of a rugged cowboy holding a horse-like alien creature. Her curiosity grew. She had always loved adventure stories, tales of humans traveling to distant worlds to carve out new lives. And here it was, a real chance, even if it might be a mistake. She could ignore it, yes, but something in her heart urged her to see what this was. 2 weeks later, Leora stood on the observation deck of the spaceport, her bag secured and a small nervous smile on her face. She had never traveled so far from Earth before. Aurora Prime was more than 20 light-years away, and the journey would take months in suspended animation. She had only one certainty: this journey would change her life. When she finally arrived, the planet's surface stretched endlessly beneath her ship. Red and brown dust swirled around the settlement, small metal buildings rising like lonely mushrooms in the harsh landscape. The air was breathable but dry, with a faint metallic scent that reminded her of iron. She stepped out, her boots sinking slightly into the dusty ground. Her heart raced as she scanned the sparse settlement. A few colonists moved about, carrying supplies or tending small gardens. And then she saw him, Rhett, the man from the hologram. He was taller than she imagined, broad-shouldered, wearing a dusty brown coat and a wide-brimmed hat. His hair was darker than the projection, and there was a quiet strength in his stance. He looked tired and perhaps a little wary, but something in his eyes softened when they met hers. Leora's nerves fluttered. Hello," she called, her voice uncertain. Rhett's gaze lingered on her for a moment. He didn't move immediately. Then slowly he stepped forward. "You're not who I expected," he said, his voice low but not unkind. Leora smiled awkwardly. I know, there seems to have been a mistake." Rhett nodded, shading his eyes from the harsh sun. "I guessed as much. Still, you're here now, might as well make the best of it." There was a silence, filled only by the faint whistling of the wind and the distant hum of the settlement's machinery. Over the next few hours, Rhett guided Leora through the settlement. He explained the basics of frontier life on Aurora Prime, the importance of water conservation, tending crops that grew slowly in the alien soil, and the constant maintenance of the settlement's solar and wind-powered generators. Leora listened carefully, absorbing everything. Her hands itched to help, to do something useful. She had never lived on a frontier before, let alone an alien one, but she was determined to try. Their first task together was tending a small greenhouse filled with strange plants that shimmered under Aurora Prime's twin suns. Leora marveled at the colors: blue stems, silver leaves, and flowers that seemed to glow faintly at night. "You've got a good eye for this," Rhett remarked as she carefully transplanted a sapling. "Not many people can handle Aurora plants without killing them." Leora laughed. "I've always loved gardening on Earth. I guess it's in my blood." They worked side by side, the awkward tension slowly easing. Leora noticed that Rhett spoke little of himself, but when he did, it was clear he cared deeply for the land and the small community. As the twin suns began to set, casting long orange and purple shadows across the dusty plains, Leora felt an unexpected warmth. It wasn't the sun. It was the quiet pride in Rhett's eyes as he watched her handle the fragile alien plants. That evening, after a simple meal of hydroponic vegetables and rehydrated grains, they sat outside on the steps of the main building. Aurora Prime's sky stretched endlessly above them, dotted with unfamiliar constellations. "You must think this is strange," Leora said softly, her voice almost lost in the wind. Rhett chuckled. "Strange? Yeah, but in a good way. Most people wouldn't dare step onto Aurora Prime without years of training. And here you are, brave or foolish, I'm not sure which." "Maybe a little of both," Leora replied, smiling. They spoke for hours, sharing stories of Earth and Aurora Prime. Leora talked about her small life on Earth, the city she had left behind, the crowded streets, and the quiet longing for adventure. Rhett spoke of Aurora Prime, of the harsh winters, the alien storms, and the loneliness of a life built on survival and hard work. In that vast, alien silence, a connection began to form. It was not love, at least not yet, but a budding respect and trust. Two people, so different, learning to navigate a world that demanded courage and patience. The next morning brought new challenges. Leora was assigned to help repair one of the settlement's solar collectors. The panels were damaged by a recent windstorm, and without them, the settlement's energy supply would be critically low. Rhett worked closely with her, explaining each step. At first, she struggled, fumbling with tools and misreading some instructions. But he never scolded her. He guided patiently, showing her the proper techniques. Slowly, she began to grasp the process, her confidence growing with each successful repair. By midday, the panels were operational again. Leora wiped sweat from her brow, proud of the work she had accomplished. Rhett nodded, a rare smile appearing on his face. "Not bad for someone who wasn't supposed to be here," he said. Leora laughed, feeling a sense of belonging she hadn't expected to find. "I guess mistakes can lead to good things," she said. As the days passed, Leora adapted to frontier life with surprising speed. She learned to ride the alien horse creatures, navigate the rocky terrain, and even hunt for food alongside Rhett. Though she missed Earth, she began to see the beauty in the challenge. The freedom of Aurora Prime, the connection to the land, and the simplicity of a life built on survival, cooperation, and trust. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise, Rhett finally opened up about his past. He had come to Aurora Prime seeking a new start after losing family and friends on Earth. He had built a life here, but the isolation weighed heavily on him. The arrival of Leora, mistaken though it was, had brought a light into his life he didn't realize he had been missing. "And you?" he asked gently. "Do you regret coming here?" Leora shook her head. "No, this feels like where I'm supposed to be, even if it was a mistake." Rhett studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Then let's make the best of it, together." And so, what began as a misunderstanding slowly transformed into a partnership. Leora was not just a visitor or a mistake. She was becoming a part of something larger, something human and enduring. A reminder that even in the farthest reaches of space, people could find connection, purpose, and belonging. As the wind whispered through the alien grasses and the moons glowed softly overhead, Leora realized she had arrived not by mistake, but by fate. Aurora Prime was harsh, unforgiving, and beautiful. And in this strange, distant world she had found her place, and perhaps, just perhaps, someone to share it with. The morning sun rose over Aurora Prime, painting the dusty plains in shades of orange and gold. Leora woke early, her body still adjusting to the planet's rhythm. The previous days had been full of new experiences, alien plants, strange creatures, and a life that demanded every ounce of patience and curiosity she possessed. She stretched and glanced out of the small cabin's window. Rhett was already outside, moving with quiet efficiency, checking the settlement's equipment and the alien horse creatures grazing nearby. He looked up and nodded at her. "Morning," he said, his voice calm and steady. "Ready for today?" Leora smiled, pulling on her boots. "As ready as I'll ever be. What's the plan?" Rhett gestured toward the horizon. "The irrigation system's acting up. We need to check the water pumps before the afternoon heat dries out the crops. Come on, I'll show you." The journey to the water pumps took them across a rocky plateau. Leora marveled at the alien landscape. The red and violet stones, the wind-carved cliffs, and the shimmering rivers that glowed faintly under Aurora Prime's twin suns. "It's beautiful," Leora said quietly, feeling a sense of wonder she had not experienced on Earth. "I never imagined a world like this existed." Rhett glanced at her, a small smile forming. "It can be beautiful if you know how to survive here." When they reached the pumps, Rhett examined the machinery carefully. The pumps were partially buried in dust, their panels showing signs of wear from recent storms. Water dripped unevenly from the pipes, a warning that something was wrong. "Looks like we've got a blockage," Rhett said, rolling up his sleeves. "Could be debris, could be a small animal, who knows?" Leora swallowed her nervousness. "I can help, right?" Rhett gave her a long look, then nodded. "If you're sure. It's tricky work, but I'll guide you." Together they crouched by the pipes. Leora followed his instructions carefully, removing dust, checking valves, and adjusting the controls. Rhett's patience never wavered, even when she struggled or made mistakes. "Good," he said after a while. "You're learning fast." "Most people would give up by now." Leora's cheeks warmed. "I don't want to give up, not here, not now." Hours passed, the sun climbing higher. Sweat ran down their faces and dust coated their clothes, but slowly, water began to flow evenly through the pipes. The crops would survive another day. "See," Rhett said, stepping back. "We make a good team." Leora laughed, wiping her brow. "I didn't think I'd ever say this, but frontier work can be satisfying." Rhett nodded. "It is. You just have to respect the land and understand it." Aurora doesn't forgive laziness. After they returned to the settlement, Leora was assigned another task, helping the colonists repair a greenhouse roof damaged by a recent storm. The greenhouse was delicate, made of transparent panels that glimmered under the sunlight, and it protected some of the settlement's most important crops. "Careful," Rhett warned. "One wrong move and the panels crack. That would be bad." Leora climbed onto the roof carefully, gripping the metal supports. She balanced herself while examining the panels, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear. The wind gusted unexpectedly, sending shivers down her spine, but she held firm. "Like this," Rhett called from below. "Hold the panel at an angle while I secure it. That's it." Together they worked, lifting and fitting the panels one by one. The task required patience, coordination, and trust. Leora felt herself growing more confident, learning to read the subtle signals of the environment, the wind's direction, the slight vibrations in the panels, even the temperature of the metal under her hands. By evening, the greenhouse was repaired. Leora stepped back, breathing heavily but smiling. "We did it," she said. Rhett nodded, a rare grin on his face. "Yeah, we did." As they walked back to the cabin, Leora noticed the sky darkening with unusual clouds. A storm was coming, faster than expected. Aurora Prime's storms were unpredictable, often changing direction and intensity in moments. "We should secure the other crops," Rhett said. "If the wind picks up, we could lose everything." Leora's heart raced, but she nodded. Together they moved quickly, covering fragile plants with protective shields, reinforcing fences and checking each building. The storm arrived sooner than they had expected, a fierce wind carrying dust and small debris. Leora held onto a post, struggling to keep her balance. Rhett came beside her, steadying her with a firm hand. "Hold on," he shouted over the roar of the wind. The storm passed as quickly as it had arrived, leaving a dusty calm in its wake. The crops had survived, the settlement remained intact, and Leora felt a profound sense of accomplishment. "You handled that well," Rhett said once the wind died down. "Most newcomers would have panicked." Leora smiled, though exhaustion weighed heavily on her. "I couldn't have done it without you." As night fell, they gathered with other colonists around a small fire. The twin moons of Aurora Prime hung low in the sky, casting soft light on the dusty landscape. Stories were shared, laughter echoed, and Leora realized something remarkable. She was no longer an outsider. She was part of this community. Rhett sat beside her, handing her a warm drink. "You've changed things around here," he said softly. "You make people hope again." "Even me." Leora looked at him, surprised. "Me? I didn't mean to." Rhett shrugged, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Maybe not, but sometimes change happens anyway, even by mistake." The next days were filled with more work and lessons. Leora learned to ride the alien horse creatures with confidence, even racing across the plains with Rhett guiding her. She learned which plants thrived in the shifting soil, how to repair broken machinery, and how to predict storms by observing the sky. One afternoon, while exploring a nearby ridge, Leora stumbled upon a rare aurora flower. Its petals glowed faintly, almost as if it contained a tiny star. She carefully picked it, intending to show Rhett. When she returned, Rhett looked at the flower in her hand, a faint smile on his face. "You've got a good eye for life here," he said. "Most people would walk past it without noticing." Leora's heart warmed. She realized she was learning not just the skills to survive, but the perspective to appreciate this new world, the beauty, the challenges, and the people who made it home. That evening, as they worked on the settlement's generator, Rhett finally shared more about himself. He spoke of his past on Earth, the loneliness he had felt, and the desire to create something lasting on Aurora Prime. Leora listened, her respect for him growing. She had expected a gruff, distant man, but she discovered someone thoughtful, hardworking, and quietly kind. "You've changed a lot since you arrived," Rhett said, his eyes meeting hers. "Not just in what you do, but in how we all see things. You remind us why we're here." Leora felt a warmth in her chest. She had never imagined that a mistake, a message meant for someone else, would lead her here, to this rugged, beautiful world, to this man, to a community she now cared deeply about. And yet, she knew there were more challenges ahead. Aurora Prime was a planet of beauty, yes, but also of hardship. Every day brought new lessons, new problems to solve, and new ways to grow. As she lay down that night, watching the moons drift slowly across the sky, Leora felt a quiet excitement. She had arrived as a mistake, but she would stay to learn, to grow, and to become part of something larger than herself. Aurora Prime was harsh, unpredictable, and magnificent. And in that vast, alien world, Leora had begun to find her place, and perhaps a new kind of family. The morning air on Aurora Prime was crisp and quiet, filled with the gentle hum of distant machinery and the soft rustle of alien grasses. Leora woke early, her mind buzzing with plans. The settlement had become her home, and each day brought new lessons in survival, creativity, and the quiet joys of frontier life. Rhett was already outside, inspecting the perimeter fence that protected the crops from small alien creatures. When he saw Leora emerge from the cabin, he gave her a small nod. "Ready for a hike today?" Leora smiled. "I think so. What are we exploring?" Rhett pointed toward a ridge in the distance. "There's a valley beyond that ridge. I've noticed some unusual plants there. Could be useful for the settlement or dangerous. Either way, we need to check it out." Excited and slightly nervous, Leora mounted her alien horse creature. The animals were unlike anything on Earth, with long, slender legs, gentle eyes, and a soft, glimmering coat that reflected the sunlight. Rhett's creature moved confidently ahead, and Leora followed, feeling the wind rush past her as they crossed rocky plains and shimmering streams. As they reached the ridge, Leora gasped. Below lay a valley bathed in sunlight, full of plants that glowed faintly with colors she had never seen before. Some shimmered blue, others purple, and a few had delicate golden petals. The valley seemed alive, as if the planet itself was breathing. "Beautiful," Leora whispered, reaching out to touch a soft leaf. Rhett studied the plants carefully. "These could be valuable," he said. "Some might have medicinal properties, others might be edible, but we need to be careful, they're alien. One wrong touch could mean trouble." Leora nodded, her curiosity and caution balanced. She began taking notes, observing the plants' colors, shapes, and patterns. Rhett watched her, impressed. "You've got a good eye for details," he said. "Most people wouldn't notice the differences so quickly." Hours passed as they explored the valley. Leora carefully collected samples while Rhett recorded observations about the terrain and water sources. They laughed when Leora accidentally brushed against a plant that tickled her fingers, sending her stumbling into Rhett, who caught her just in time. "You're going to make me fall one of these days," Leora teased. "And you'll make me laugh every time you do," Rhett replied, a rare smile lighting up his face. By the afternoon, they had gathered several samples and mapped out parts of the valley that could be useful for the settlement. Leora felt a growing sense of purpose. This planet was harsh, but it rewarded curiosity, courage, and careful observation. Every small discovery felt like a victory. When they returned to the settlement, the other colonists gathered around to see what they had brought back. Leora carefully showed the samples, explaining the potential uses. Rhett added technical notes, highlighting where irrigation or protection would be needed for the plants to thrive. The colonists listened, impressed. "This could really help with nutrition and medicine," one said. Leora felt a warm glow of pride. For the first time, she realized she wasn't just surviving on Aurora Prime, she was contributing, making a difference in the lives of the people around her. That evening, Rhett and Leora worked together in the greenhouse, planting seeds from the valley and adjusting the nutrient levels in the soil. Leora was amazed at how much she had learned in such a short time. She had come to Aurora Prime by mistake, but now she understood that every day was an opportunity to grow, to help, and to connect. Rhett noticed the change in her. She moved with confidence, handled the alien plants carefully, and even suggested improvements for the settlement's irrigation system. "You're really becoming part of this place," he said quietly. Leora smiled. "I think I already am. It doesn't feel like I'm visiting anymore, it feels like I belong." Rhett nodded, a thoughtful look in his eyes. "Good, because this place, it needs people like you. People who care, who notice things, who keep trying even when it's hard." As the days turned into weeks, Leora and Rhett grew closer. They shared meals, repaired equipment together, and explored the surrounding plains whenever time allowed. Their conversations deepened, moving from survival tips to dreams, memories of Earth, and hopes for the future. One evening, as they sat on a hill overlooking the settlement, Leora asked, "Do you ever think about why people come here? To a planet so far from home, so hard to live on?" Rhett looked out over the land, silent for a moment. "I think some people come for adventure. Some come to escape. I came because I wanted a fresh start, but I stay because I care about this place and the people here, and maybe because I care about someone I didn't expect." Leora's heart skipped a beat. She turned to him, surprised but not unafraid. "Me?" he nodded. "Yeah, you've changed things around here. You've changed me. I didn't expect it, but I'm glad it happened." For a moment, the wind seemed to pause, as if Aurora Prime itself were listening. Leora felt warmth spread through her chest, a mix of pride, joy, and something new she hadn't fully understood before. The next challenge came suddenly. A strange alien insect began appearing near the settlement's food storage. They were small but voracious, and threatened to ruin weeks of careful planning. Rhett and Leora worked together, designing simple barriers and traps. Leora suggested a natural solution, using plants from the valley that emitted a scent the insects disliked. Rhett implemented it carefully, adjusting the barriers to guide the insects away from the crops. By evening, the problem was under control. The colonists celebrated their success, praising Leora for her creativity and courage. She felt a sense of belonging stronger than ever. Later, alone with Rhett, she admitted, "I was scared at first. I didn't know if I could handle all this. But now I feel like I can do anything." Rhett smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "That's what Aurora Prime does to people. It teaches you who you are and what you're capable of." Days turned into weeks, and the bond between Leora and Rhett grew. They laughed together, worked together, and shared quiet moments beneath the twin moons. Leora discovered a strength within herself she hadn't known existed. She could ride the alien horse creatures without fear, repair equipment, and solve problems with ingenuity and care. Rhett, in turn, learned to open up more. Leora's presence reminded him that he didn't have to carry the weight of the settlement alone. Together, they became a team, blending human courage and compassion with careful observation and knowledge of their alien world. One afternoon, Leora discovered a small hidden grove filled with plants unlike any they had seen before. Some shimmered silver, others glowed faintly, and a few had delicate, translucent leaves. She ran to Rhett, excitement in her voice. "You've got to see this," she said. "These plants, they could be important. Maybe for medicine, maybe for food." Rhett followed her, examining the grove with keen eyes. "You've got a real talent for noticing things. I never would have found this place alone." Together, they collected samples carefully, discussing how the plants could help the settlement. Leora realized that her curiosity and courage were not just for her own growth. They could save lives, improve the community, and even make Aurora Prime a better home for everyone. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the plains, Leora and Rhett returned to the settlement. The light in their eyes reflected the bond they had formed, not just as partners in work, but as companions in life. Aurora Prime was still harsh, unpredictable, and challenging. But Leora had discovered that humans had a remarkable ability to adapt, to connect, and to thrive even in the most alien of worlds. And in that realization, she found a deep joy and purpose she had never known before. Rhett watched her as she handled the plants carefully, a soft smile on his face. "You've changed things," he said quietly. Leora turned to him, a gentle smile forming. "No, we've changed things together." And in that moment, under the twin moons of Aurora Prime, Leora understood something fundamental. Humanity's strength was not just in surviving, but in caring, learning, and growing together. Even a mistake, like her arrival on this distant planet, could become a blessing beyond imagination. The days ahead promised more challenges, more discoveries, and more moments that would test their courage and ingenuity. But Leora knew one thing for certain. She was exactly where she was meant to be, with someone she trusted, and a world that was slowly becoming home. Aurora Prime was quiet that morning, but Leora could sense a tension in the air. The twin suns rose slowly, casting long shadows across the dusty plains, and the wind carried the faint scent of metal and earth. It was beautiful, but something felt wrong. Rhett was already outside, checking the settlement's water system. When he noticed Leora approaching, he waved her over. "Morning, we've got a problem," Leora frowned. "What kind of problem?" Rhett pointed toward the main irrigation line. Water was trickling far too slowly and the flow was uneven across the fields. "The main pump is acting up. If we don't fix it soon, some of the crops could fail. That would be bad." Leora's stomach tightened. She had faced storms, alien insects, and tricky machinery before, but this was different. The survival of the settlement's food supply depended on them. "Let's take a look," she said, determination in her voice. Together they walked to the pump station, a small building surrounded by pipes and valves. The machinery hummed faintly, but something was clearly wrong. Rhett opened the main panel, inspecting wires and valves carefully. "It's clogged," he said. "Not just with dust, something else. Maybe mineral buildup, maybe a small alien deposit. Either way, it's slowing everything down." Leora rolled up her sleeves. "Okay, let's fix it." They spent hours working side by side, cleaning pipes, adjusting valves, and carefully rerouting water through secondary channels to keep the crops alive while they repaired the main pump. Sweat dripped from their foreheads, and dust coated their clothes, but neither gave up. "This is worse than I thought," Rhett admitted, wiping his brow. "We need a permanent solution or this will keep happening." Leora thought for a moment. "What if we use the minerals from the valley plants? Some of them repel buildup in water pipes." We could grind them, mix them with the flow, and it might prevent future clogs. Rhett's eyes widened. That's brilliant. I hadn't thought of that. They worked quickly, collecting plant samples and preparing a natural treatment for the pump. By midday, water flowed steadily again and the crops were safe. The colonists watched in amazement as Leora explained the method, impressed by her ingenuity. "You didn't just fix the problem," one of the settlers said. "You improved the whole system." Leora smiled, feeling a surge of pride. We did it together. But the day was far from over. A sudden alarm rang from the settlement's weather monitoring station. Aurora Prime storms were unpredictable, and sensors had detected an unusual surge approaching, a storm unlike any they had seen before. The wind could reach incredible speeds, strong enough to damage buildings, crops, and equipment. Rhett's face darkened. "We need to prepare. Everything must be secured. If we don't act fast, this storm could wipe out weeks of work." Leora nodded. "Let's go." They ran from building to building, reinforcing roofs, securing greenhouses, and checking that all machinery was locked down. Leora directed colonists to safety, her calmness steadying everyone around her. "Move the crops under shelter," she called. "Tie everything down. Don't leave tools lying around." Rhett worked beside her, adjusting a protective cover over the main greenhouse. "You're incredible," he shouted over the rising wind. "I couldn't do this without you," Leora laughed, even as dust whipped around her face. "We're a team, remember." The storm hit sooner than expected. Gusts of wind tore through the settlement, rattling buildings and lifting loose debris into the air. Dust stung Leora's eyes, and the ground seemed to shake under the force. But they held on. Leora and Rhett moved swiftly, checking each section of the settlement, making sure every crop, every building, every piece of machinery was secure. The other colonists followed their lead, inspired by their courage and quick thinking. Hours passed. The storm raged, but Leora's planning and Rhett's experience kept the settlement mostly safe. Some minor damage occurred, panels shifted, a few plants were knocked over, but nothing catastrophic. When the winds finally died down, the settlers emerged from their shelters, exhausted but relieved. Leora surveyed the fields. The crops had survived, the buildings remained standing, and the settlement's machinery was mostly intact. "You did it," Rhett said, his voice filled with admiration. "We did it." Leora smiled, though fatigue tugged at her. "We made it together." The storm had tested their skills, their courage, and their teamwork. Leora realized something important. Survival on Aurora Prime wasn't just about strength or knowledge, it was about connection. Humans could endure almost anything when they worked together, cared for each other, and trusted in their own ingenuity. That night, after the colonists had finished repairing minor damages, Rhett and Leora sat outside, watching the twin moons rise above the plains. The air was calm, filled with the scent of damp soil and alien grasses. "You handled today perfectly," Rhett said quietly. "You didn't panic, you didn't freeze, you led." Leora shook her head. "I didn't do it alone. You were right there with me, and the colonists, they helped too." Rhett smiled, his hand brushing hers. "Still, I've never seen anyone take charge like you did. You've changed this place in ways I never imagined." Leora looked at him, the glow of the moons reflecting in her eyes. She realized that she had changed too. Aurora Prime had tested her limits, challenged her patience, and demanded her best. And in doing so, it had revealed her strength, courage, and capacity to care. The days that followed were quieter, allowing the settlement to recover from the storm. Leora and Rhett worked together, repairing minor damages, improving irrigation, and checking equipment. Each task was an opportunity to learn, to experiment, and to grow. One afternoon, Leora suggested a new project, building a small observation tower on the ridge overlooking the settlement. From there, they could monitor weather patterns, track wildlife, and plan future expansions. Rhett agreed, impressed by her foresight. They worked side by side, hauling materials, securing beams, and assembling the tower. Leora marveled at the view as they reached the top, the settlement below, the valley beyond, and the endless plains stretching toward the horizon. The twin suns and moons cast a warm glow, and Leora felt a profound sense of accomplishment. "This is amazing," she said, gripping the railing. "We can see everything from here," Rhett nodded, "and it will help us protect the settlement. You really think ahead," Leora smiled. "I'm learning from the best." Their bond deepened further during the construction. They shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments, realizing that their connection was more than friendship. It was partnership in the truest sense. They relied on each other, learned from each other, and found joy in every small victory. Weeks passed, and the settlement flourished. Crops grew stronger, machinery ran smoothly, and the colonists felt a renewed sense of hope. Leora's ideas and courage had transformed the community, proving that even one person could make a significant difference. One evening, as they watched the sun set behind the distant mountains, Rhett spoke softly. "You know, you've changed my life, Leora. I didn't expect it, and I never imagined it could be like this." Leora turned to him, her heart warm. "I think we've changed each other." Together, the twin moons rose, casting gentle light over the settlement. Aurora Prime was still harsh and unpredictable, but it was also beautiful, full of opportunities, and alive with the efforts of humans who dared to build, explore, and care. Leora realized that she had arrived by mistake, but she had stayed by choice. She had discovered courage, ingenuity, and the power of connection. She had found a partner in Rhett, a community that valued her, and a world that challenged and rewarded her in equal measure. And in the quiet of that night, Leora knew that the greatest adventures were not just in survival, but in learning, growing, and sharing life with those who mattered most. The morning sun bathed Aurora Prime in soft golden light, and the settlement buzzed with quiet energy. Leora stretched, feeling the strength in her arms and legs from months of hard work. She had grown faster than she ever imagined, learning the skills and wisdom needed to thrive on this alien planet. Rhett was already outside, tending the fields. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "Morning, Leora, ready for a new day," she returned his smile. "Always. What's on the schedule today?" Rhett gestured toward the edge of the settlement. "I thought we could explore the northern plateau. There's a patch of untouched land that might be good for new crops. Could be dangerous, could be rewarding. You in?" Leora's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Absolutely." They saddled their alien horse creatures and rode across the plains, feeling the wind against their faces. The landscape was harsh but magnificent: red rocks, shimmering streams, and alien plants that glowed softly in the sunlight. Leora felt a deep connection to this world. Aurora Prime had tested her patience, courage, and ingenuity, and she had risen to every challenge. When they reached the northern plateau, they discovered a valley filled with strange, untamed plants. Some glowed faintly blue, others had silver leaves that shimmered like glass. Leora knelt to examine them. "These could be amazing," she said, gently touching the leaves. "Medicinal, edible, maybe even a new type of crop we can grow in the settlement." Rhett nodded. "You've got an eye for opportunity. I'd never have noticed these." Together, they collected samples carefully, making notes and mapping the valley. Leora realized how much she had learned, not just about the plants, but about observation, patience, and problem-solving. Aurora Prime rewarded those who paid attention, who dared to try, and who worked together. On the way back, they discussed a plan. The settlement had grown stronger, thanks to Leora's creativity and Rhett's experience. Now they could expand further, planting new crops, building better irrigation, and even exploring more distant areas. Leora felt a rush of pride and purpose. She had arrived by mistake, but she had stayed to create something meaningful. When they returned, the colonists were busy at work, repairing minor damages from the last storm and tending the crops. Leora shared her findings from the northern plateau, and the settlers listened attentively. Together, they devised a plan to plant new crops and experiment with the alien plants she had discovered. One colonist said, "This will change our food supply completely. We can thrive even better now." Leora felt a warmth in her chest. She had never imagined that a simple mistake, a misdirected invitation, would lead her here to a life of purpose, adventure, and community. That evening, Leora and Rhett walked to the edge of the settlement, watching the twin moons rise over the plains. The wind was gentle, carrying the scents of earth, plants, and distant streams. "You know," Leora said quietly, "I never expected to feel this, happy here. I thought I'd just be visiting, but now this is home." Rhett looked at her, a soft smile on his face. "I know, I feel the same way. You've changed everything, not just for me, but for the whole settlement. You remind us why we're here and why it's worth working so hard." Leora took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her journey. "It wasn't just me. You taught me, guided me, and trusted me. We did this together." Rhett reached out and held her hand. "And we'll keep doing it together. There's more to explore, more to learn, and more to build. Aurora Prime isn't going to wait for us." The days that followed were filled with progress and joy. Leora led new projects, experimenting with the plants from the northern plateau, while Rhett oversaw the expansion of the settlement's infrastructure. Colonists worked together, inspired by Leora's ideas and courage. They built small bridges over streams, reinforced shelters, and even constructed a lookout tower on a distant hill. From there, they could monitor the land, track weather, and plan further exploration. Leora marveled at how much they had accomplished, and she felt a deep satisfaction in contributing to something bigger than herself. One afternoon, as they rested by a stream, Leora reflected on her journey. She had arrived by mistake, uncertain and nervous, unsure if she could survive the harsh life on Aurora Prime. But she had grown stronger, braver, and wiser. She had discovered not only the planet's secrets but also her own capabilities. Rhett looked at her, reading her thoughts. "You've changed me too," he said softly. "I've been here for years, but I never realized how much I needed someone like you. Someone who sees the possibilities, who keeps going, who cares." Leora smiled, feeling a warmth she had never experienced before. "And you've changed me. You showed me patience, courage, and the strength of quiet determination. Together, we make a good team." The following weeks were filled with celebrations, laughter, and shared accomplishments. The settlement thrived like never before. Crops flourished, buildings stood strong against the storms, and the colonists felt a renewed sense of hope. Leora's ideas and courage had transformed not just the land, but the spirit of everyone living there. One evening, as the settlement gathered to watch the twin moons rise, Leora and Rhett stood side by side. The air was filled with quiet joy, the gentle hum of machinery, and the soft rustling of alien grasses. Leora realized that this was the life she had always wanted, a life of purpose, growth, connection, and adventure. "You know," Rhett said, "we've built something incredible here. Not just crops or buildings, but a home, a community, and it's just the beginning." Leora nodded, her heart full. "Aurora Prime has given us challenges and opportunities. We've survived, grown, and created something amazing, and I can't wait to see what comes next." They walked through the settlement, greeting colonists, checking on crops, and marveling at how far they had come. Every building, every field, every invention was a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and cooperation. As night fell, Leora and Rhett returned to the cabin. They sat outside, watching the moons drift slowly across the sky. Leora leaned her head on Rhett's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of life around them. "You've made this planet feel like home," Rhett said softly. "And I can't imagine it without you." Leora smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. "I feel the same way. This was a mistake at first, but now I know it was meant to be." Rhett reached out and held her hand firmly. "We'll keep building, exploring, and growing together, no matter what comes next." And in that quiet moment, beneath the twin moons of Aurora Prime, Leora realized something extraordinary. Humanity's greatest strength was not just in surviving, but in connecting, learning, and creating together. Mistakes could become blessings, challenges could become triumphs, and a single person could make a profound difference. Leora had changed Rhett's life. Rhett had changed hers, and together they had changed the settlement and perhaps one day all of Aurora Prime. As the stars shimmered overhead and the moons reflected softly in the alien grasses, Leora whispered, "This is just the beginning." Rhett squeezed her hand, a quiet promise in his eyes. "The beginning of everything we can do, together." And so the settlement flourished, the humans thrived, and Leora, who had arrived by mistake, found her true home, her true purpose, and a life full of hope, love, and endless possibilities. Aurora Prime was no longer just a distant planet. It was their world, and humanity's courage and ingenuity would continue to shine, no matter how far the stars stretched.